But we start this hour with a key update on US-China trade talks as Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says Washington sees the makings of a deal with Beijing. Talks held this week in Stockholm made progress and Bessent expressed optimism about the path forward. According to reports, Bessent confirmed the deal isn't final but noted strong US pushback during the talks. China faces an August 12th deadline to strike a lasting tariff agreement with the Trump administration. Earlier deals in May and June helped cool tensions over tariffs and rare earth exports. Talks continue amid rising trade pressure. Well, of course, this in the midst of wider tariff action. Steep tariffs applied to multiple countries after the initial August 1st deadline. But this, of course, is separate for China after talks that were held in Geneva and then London, both the US and China agreeing to a trade truce, which swapped triple-digit tariffs on each country down to far lower rates. General rhetoric between the US and China has also improved in recent times. Provocative language turned into more of a unity between the two leaders. Trump and President Xi both talking about a potential visit in that instance where Trump and his wife Melania, the First Lady, would both go to China. That is still not to be confirmed, though the offer is there. The situation now, of course, a trade deal is needed. The tariffs at the rate that they were, of course, hugely impactful. China is a massive exporter of technology, rare earths. In return, of course, the US an exporter of multiple different goods, food, stock, but also other areas that are key like oil. And this all blew up initially after a threat of tariffs before Trump had even started his second term in office. A question raised about fentanyl trade as well, with many of the chemicals that are used in the production of fentanyl coming from China. But it seems that there are at least movements towards positivity. And joining us now to discuss that, Andrew K.P. Leung, a China strategist, joining us live from London. Andrew, thank you for being with us. Is there optimism from a Chinese perspective of a deal that both countries can be happy about?
Well, of course, it is a very complicated issue. On the one hand, it's not just about fentanyl, because even though some of the supply comes from China, but then the transit passes through Mexico and other drug, infused countries, maybe in the southern border of the United States. And some coming even from Canada. So fentanyl is not the main issue. The main issue is the confrontation of the United States against China's rise, particularly technology, but also trying to rebalance the trade. Now, as the balancing the trade is concerned, Trump thinks the tariffs is a very powerful weapon with the help of with the possibility of bringing some jobs back to the United States and bringing a lot of revenue. But on the other hand, it's going to translate into higher costs for American consumers. So that's one side of the equation. And the other side of the equation, as far as China is concerned, China is pivoting to the south, to the global south. And you look at the trade statistics, even during the height of the tariffs war, China's export has actually increased. Because it's compensated more by China's pivot to the global south. But the critical issue is, of course, China just doesn't want more trade or resumption of normal trade. China wants a lifting of some of the restrictions against China's access to critical chips, the semiconductor chips, from 3 nanometers and below. And there are huge restrictions there, and China's still not able to replace that. But on the other hand, China's also found a stranglehold against the United States unilateralism. And the stranglehold is rare earths, as I explained earlier in these channels, because China controls 95% or even more of the production of these rare earths, and they found their use in lots of products, ranging from mobile phones to various gadgets, and also to the military armament, including F-35 fighters. So I think that both sides need to negotiate on these critical issues that characterize the relationship, but it's not likely to be resolved anytime soon.
Yes, Andrew. Let's look at the imbalances that have been spoken about previously. Donald Trump said that China produces too much and the US consumes too much. Looking to get that shifted, do you think that that will be a part of any deal that is done?
This is really spot on because China has been just expanding its production in order to create jobs, in order to bring back revenue. And that's been going on not just this year, but tracing back to when Deng Xiaoping opened up the country and embraced the international trading system by joining the WTO and so on. Now, all this has been going on quite well in the relationship between the United States and China, because the United States wanted to wanted to outsource a lot of the polluting industries, a lot of the cheap stuff that didn't make much money, because say a mobile phone produced in China by Apple, the United States patents and the technology reaped about something like 90% of the value of a mobile phone, leaving about 10% or even less to the Chinese. But then, of course, China is now increasing its innovation and technology, is now even threatening the dominance of Apple phones, and of course in clean energy cars. It's decimating a lot of the industry pillars in the West. So I think that there needs to be a rebalance there by China perhaps moving some of the production to the host countries and to create jobs and to bring benefits to the local economy. But on the other hand, China also needs to open up more of its market, because there was an accusation of lack of market reciprocity, whereas the China products find easy penetration in Western markets, in Europe and the United States. The same cannot be said of the China market. So China needs to also open up more of its market space for Western investors and Western businesses. Well, this has been done, of course, but not quite enough in the eyes of countries like the United States.
Yes, and Andrew, before we move on, very briefly, do you think that this sort of improving relationship between the US and China, specifically surrounding trade, has a risk of snapping back to where it was, with tariffs once again going into triple digits? Or do you think this is now a framework that can be followed at least until the end of Donald Trump's second term?
This is peculiar to China and the United States, because the United States can feel that it can impose its will, the American first rules of the jungle on most other countries, even to a certain extent, European Union, perhaps not so much Canada, and also on Australia, and definitely to the poor countries in Latin America, in Africa. But that cannot be said for China. As I said, China's found a stranglehold that really goes into the heart of the American economy and also its military, as I explained, by restricting access to rare earths. So I think that this is a lot of toing and flowing there. But I think that both sides, both the United States and China, realize that they cannot really sustain this game of the chicken, because both sides are not going to back down. And then this paved the path for a more calibrated and nuanced relationship. And I think this is likely to be defined by the visit of President Trump to China. He has already expressed a strong wish, and also by the possibility of President Xi giving a reciprocal visit to the United States on Mar-a-Lago to celebrate Trump's birthday, perhaps, next year. So I think that we are only seeing some green shoots. There are lots of discussions going on, and both sides are trying to test each other's will. But I think the direction is there. But that direction may not translate easily for other countries, because no other country is in the same strong negotiating position as in China.
Andrew, as always, thank you so much for your insights. We will continue.